with that, Tyler, let's talk about A/B testing.
Yeah, so A/B testing, we actually had a question on this one, so good timing there. A/B tests are basically a way within PageSense to dynamically present different versions of the same page to different users to check the success to a particular goal. So again, we'll get started by just making one, and then I can kind of walk through some of the use cases here. So from the homepage, of course, we'll go over to the left-hand side under Optimize, open up the A/B test section, and then we'll go ahead and make a new A/B test. We're going to give it a name, and then we're going to determine which page it should go on. So again, we'll just use our homepage here as our kind of standard example. Now, using that homepage, the first section is going to be the editor section. So up at the top, we can kind of track our progress through all the different steps that we have to go through to set this up. The first thing we're going to want to do in a PageSense is make our first variant. So we've got a little drop down here in the top left. So of course, we're going to have our original. I can't make any edits on the original, right? That's going to kind of be the actual thing that's just sitting on the website by default. But if I go ahead and enter into variation 1, I can actually start to change content on the website within PageSense and serve it up differently to the viewers. It's kind of the advantage of having it embedded onto your site itself. So maybe I want to run an experiment. Maybe I don't like the tagline, making Zoho work for you. Or maybe I just think that maybe there's a better one out there. So I can actually select that element here on the page. I can go ahead and edit the text of that element. And maybe I'm not a marketing guy, but I came up with a new little slogan, taking Zoho to the next level. And so I can actually just edit that content here within PageSense, and it will deploy it to the website for me and actually change the HTML on the site for selective viewers in order to run this experiment.
See, I would have gone with taking Zoho to 11.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a marketing guy. So now we have this basically in here. We've set up a new little tagline, and that's going to be our variation. Now you can also create many different variations inside of one A/B test. What I will highlight when you're doing these is, in order to keep your experiment clean, you probably only want to edit 1 or 2 things at a time within each variation. So an example would be, maybe on this homepage, I want to edit this tagline, and maybe I also want to edit the phrase on the book a meeting link. You can go ahead and do that, but there's kind of a benefit to keeping things like one element at a time that you're changing, so you can figure out what part of each of those elements works well. It's often a case where you might want to make kind of a grid and start to figure out, all the different things that you can change, what variations are going to try, and then set up a series of experiments to best optimize those. But so now that we've kind of created our 2 variants, we now have to tell PageSense how we're going to define a win, right? So how are we going to determine if A or if B is better? And so to do that, we're going to go ahead and make a new goal. And there's a whole bunch of different types of goals that you can track through this. Things like element clicks on a specific link, clicks that target a specific URL. If you are making sales directly through the site, you can track like revenue, right? If you're able to serve up 2 different versions of a product page, which one generates more revenue? In this case, we're going to go ahead and look at this based on element clicks. And the element that we're going to choose here is going to be one of the elements on that page where we're running the experiment. So it has our page here as our, homepage at Zenatta. And so I went ahead and selected the book a meeting link here. And you see it's kind of added that, element to track there. But let's say I don't really care if they click it in the top right or on the page in the middle. So I might want to just click both of these and say, we're going to define a win as a click to either of these buttons because they do essentially the same thing. And so either of these are going to be a win, and we can go ahead and save our goal to track those. But so yeah, now that we have our goals set up, we've told PageSense how we're going to define a win in this experiment. Now we're going to tell it who we should use for this experiment. So you can do things like, say, use every single person who hits the page, or maybe you just want to run this experiment on 10 or 20% of users and kind of keep things normal for the rest of them. Another little benefit to doing this, kind of to circle back to a question we had earlier, is you're actually able to select some specific things about the audience that you want to serve this up to. So you don't have to just track it for all visitors. Like maybe in our case, we know that the vast majority of our customers are always going to be based in the US because we're a US partner. So maybe I just want to track people that are on a desktop, right? Because again, iOS or mobile is going to load a little differently. It might make the experiment less valid if we count those two different sources, because maybe one would be better for mobile and one would be better for the desktop. So maybe I just want to control this and just look at desktop users that are within the United States. And so I can go ahead and make a new target audience for that and go ahead and save. The last little part here, and I won't dig in too deeply into this, is the configuration of this test. If you wanted to say that more traffic or less traffic should go to a particular test, you can go ahead and set that up here. You can also choose your particular experimental method. I would keep it with the frequentist. The Bayesian is still new. And the quick one here at the bottom with quick trends, optimal, and high accuracy, that's just your statistical significance. So basically, if things are, they have to be less than 5% likely to have happened randomly to count, basically is what you're saying there. But again, these are things you can kind of tinker with over time, and using the defaults here, if you just want to get started, is going to be plenty good enough. Last but not least, we can go ahead to our summary page. We could just get a little top down of all these things that we've set up for our experiment. And then in the top right, we're ready to go ahead and launch that. And once you do, we've had one running here just on a very small amount of visitors so far. You can start to see, which version is working better. So in this case, we had consolidated some of our top menu bars to see if we get some better click-through to those new buttons. But it actually did not work. So consolidating them in this case showed a lower click-through rate, which is fine. We still are happy we ran the experiment. But you can start to see kind of what's working better over time based on some of these basic reports that you can pull out of your testing.
Yeah. And before we move on, we had another question, which is, hey, how do you change the color of an element when doing A/B testing? And one thing we didn't really talk about in here is Tyler, you use the method of direct editing on page, but another way of A/B testing is actually to give it two different web pages. So you can say when a person comes into the homepage, Zenatta.com, we're going to serve them that. And we're going to serve them up Zenatta.com/B, let's say. And we've created a whole separate homepage there. Now that would be a lot just to change the color of an element, but that would be how you would do it. You basically can serve up two completely different pages, or just clone your existing homepage and just make some slight color changes.
You may be able to do some basic color changes in the page editor too when you're setting up the variants. So it'd be worth playing around with that tool as well. Generally for us, we're changing things like language or content, but I believe you can change color there in addition to those.